Lesson 9.4, Graphing Sine and Cosine Functions. Our essential question: how do you explore characteristics, stretch and shrink, translate and reflect graphs of sine and cosine functions? Standard 9.4, number 3, Graphing of vertical translation. Vertical translations means our graph is going to be moving either up or down based on the k outside value. If you remember from our chapter 1 and 2, the inside h values tell us if we're moving left or right. If our h is an added h, remember we are moving to the left. And if our inside h is a subtracted h, that means that we are moving to the right. Remember, the k's on the outside tell us up and down. If it is an added k, we are moving up. And if it is a subtracted k, we are moving down. The h and k translations work the same for sine and cosine as they did our parabola or our absolute values or our radicals. So we're being asked to graph g of x equals 2 sine 4x plus 3. First thing that we need to do is we need to identify our a. Our a is always the value in the very front, so my a is 2. My b is the number connected to the x. My b is 4. There is no parenthesis with an inside, which meant my h value is a 0. And this added 3 on the outside is my k. So I have my a, b, k, and h. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find my amplitude. And remember, amplitude is the equation, the absolute value of a. A is 2, so I'm looking at the absolute value of 2, which is 2. So my amplitude is 2, which means I will be going too high from the midline. I am not going to draw anything yet because I see that I have a k. My midline is no longer my x-axis like I'm used to seeing it. So I need to figure out what's happening. My next thing I need to look at is my period. Period is the 2 pi all over the absolute value of b equation. So I have 2 pi all over the absolute value of my b is a 4. So I have 2 pi all over the absolute value of 4 is 4. So I end up having pi halves. My period, how long will my sine function go before it starts repeating again? It will go pi halves long. Again, I'm not graphing anything yet. Because I have a vertical translation, these currently are not going to help me graph. So what I first need to do is I need to look for my midline. My midline is the equation y equals k, and this is crucial. My y equals, my k value is 3, which meant that my y-axis needs to be rescaled, and I don't want to just scale it to 3. My midline, the middle of my sine, is going to go up to 3. And then from there, it's going to be too high. So I know that I need to be able to count at least up to 5. So let's go ahead and scale. So I went ahead and scaled up to 5. My midline is the new middle line of my sine. So right here where y is 3, this is my new midline. My sine function will center all around this line. From here, I will be 2 above and 2 below. Last thing that we need is we need our 5 key points. So sine and cosine are very different functions and they have different formulas. So because this is sine, we need to make sure that we are definitely looking at the sine formulas. Sine has 3 x-intercepts. So our first x-intercept on sine is normally the coordinate point 0, 0. But we have a k value. Our midline moved. Since that moved, it moved up, which means our y values ended up changing, which means my x-intercept y value needs to change in relation to the k. This is my first x-intercept when I have a k value. So I have the coordinate point 0, and then 0 plus my k value was a 3. So my first x-intercept is the coordinate point 0, 3. My second x-intercept is normally the equation that looks like this. But because k is involved, k reflects the up and down, which is the y. That means that my y needs to have the k value moving up in relation to it. K was 3, so we need to make sure that we have that in there. I need my b. My b was 4. So my other x-intercept is the coordinate point 5/4, 3. This was an x-intercept. And we have one more x-intercept. X-intercept number 3 is supposed to look like this, which meant my y value had to take the k into account. So here is my y value taking this new midline move into account. So my b is a 4, my k was a 3, so I am pi halves 3. Now these aren't going to be x-intercepts anymore because our midline is no longer the x-intercept. These are actually midline intercepts. So these 3 should be on the midline because that's where my x-intercept actually moved to. They moved up 3. So these should be 0, 3. It's right here. Pi fourths 3 is right here. Pi halves 3 is right here. And I knew my period said I would stop repeating after the pi halves. So it looks like every pi fourths I am going to have a repeat. So here is all of my midline intercepts because it's no longer on the x-axis. Well, now we need to find our max and our mins, and sine has one max and one min per interval. So my max formula is supposed to be this, but when it was shifted up, the y value had to be shifted up as well, which meant I need to make sure that my y value has the k shift up. So my b was the 4, my a that I haven't used yet, my a is a 2, and my k is a 3. So my max is pi 8ths 5. So pi 8ths 5 is right here. And last point I need is my min. The min formula is this. But because k shifted us up, my y value, which reflects k, also needs to be shifted. So I need to make sure I added k to it. So my b is a 4. My a was a 2, so this is a negative 2, plus 3 my k. So my min is 3 pi 8ths 1. So 3 pi 8ths is right here. So 1, 2, 3 pi 8ths, and I need to be at the 1. So I see that this is 2 away, and this is also 2 away, which is what the amplitude said, so that's perfect. So I see that this is my repeat. This is my single period, and this is the shape that's repeating all the way through. So I had to go up to 5, and then I had to go down to 1. I had to go up to 5, down to 1. And we're going to keep going up to 5, down to 1, all the way through. You got to make sure you do it all the way through. So here is our graphed sine with a vertical shift. The last thing that we need to do is we need to describe our transformations. Your h, which we said was 0, h is on the inside. H tells us our left and our right moves. So this one has we have no horizontal shift. Our k is what tells us if we go up and down. Our k was 3. Up and down is vertical. So we have a vertical shift, and because it's positive, you went up 3. Our next problem, we are being asked to graph g of x equals cosine of x plus 4. First, we need to identify our a. A is the 1. Our b is also 1. My h, I don't have a parenthesis with an h at all, so my h is 0. And my k is the 4. To be able to graph this, we first need to find our amplitude. Amplitude is the equation, the absolute value of a. A is 1, so we're looking at the absolute value of 1, which is 1. So my amplitude is 1. I'm not going to graph anything yet because I need to find some other information before I'm able to do that. After amplitude, we need to find our period. Period is the equation, 2 pi all over the absolute value of b. B is 1. So this is 2 pi all over the absolute value of 1, which is 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. So that means that my function, which is cosine, is going to repeat after 2 pi. So it appears as though I have enough room this way. We have no idea if we have enough room the other way because first we have to find our midline. My midline is the equation y equals k. My k value is 4. So that means my midline moved up to the line 4, and then I need to be able to go one more up from that. My y-axis does not count for this, so that means we need to scale our y-axis just a little bit different. So here is my y-axis. I should be able to count now. So if this is what my midline did, we're actually just going to take a look at what our h and k's do. Our h is 0. H tells us our left and right move, which is our horizontal shifts. So we have no horizontal shift because it was 0. Now let's look at k. Because our k is a 4, k is up and down, which is vertical. So we know that we are going to have a vertical shift, and because it was an added 4, we are going to go up 4. So this is my transformations. So after that, I need to find my 5 key points. And you have to be very careful because sine and cosine have very different equations. So we are making sure that we are using the cosine formulas. Cosine has 2 x-intercepts, so that means that we are going to have 2 points that cross this midline, and we know that our midline is right here at 4 now. So we know that we are going to have 2 intercepts that cross this midline. So our x-intercept number 1 is supposed to be this formula, but because we have a vertical shift, our y, needs to have this added k to it. So this is going to be our formula when we have a k vertical shift. So my b is 1 and my k is 4. So this is going to be my first intercept. So right here at pi halves 4, my first intercept. My second x-intercept, which is now a midline intercept. This is the equation if the midline was the x-intercept. We'd have vertical shift, which meant our y's have to have the vertical reflection in it. So here's my equation with that vertical change in it. So my b is 1, my k is 4. So here's my second intercept. Both of these that used to be x-intercepts are now midline intercepts, and they better be on my blue line. So here's 3 halves, 4. I knew that I was supposed to go from here to here before I started repeating. I was on the half, and then I was on the 3 halves. So here is my next intercept, intercept, intercept. Those are all of my midline intercepts. Cosines have 2 maxes. So now I need to find max number 1. This is the equation if the midline was the intercept. If the midline was the x-axis, it's not. So you need to make sure that your y-coordinate takes the vertical into account. My a is 1, my k is 4. So my first max is at the coordinate point 0, 5. So here's my first max. We have a second max. My vertical shift needs to be taken into account. My b is 1, my a is 1, my k is 5. My second max is at 2 pi 5, so 2 pi 5. Cosines have 1 min, so my last 5th point is the min. The y needs to take the vertical shift into account, so my y formula needs to have the k in there as well. My b is a 1, my negative, my a is a 1, and my k is a 4. My min is pi 3. So here's pi 3. So this right here was my cosine from 0 to 2 pi before I was allowed to start repeating. So after this, I need to start repeating again. So that meant I had to go back down. Well, I'm out of space. So I went from 3 up to 5. I need to go back down to 3 again. Then I can go back up to 5 again. So here is my cosine function with my vertical shift up by 4. Our last problem. We're being asked to graph g of x equals 3 sine of 2x plus 5. First, I need to find my a. My a is 3. My b is 2. There is no parenthesis with an h, so h is 0. This added 5 on the outside is my k. My k is 5. First thing we have to do is we need to find amplitude. Amplitude is the equation, the absolute value of A, which meant I'm looking at the absolute value of 3, which is 3. So I know I'm going to be 3 high from my midline, but I don't know where my midline is yet, so we still need to find that. My period is 2 pi all over the absolute value of B. So I have 2 pi over the absolute value of 2, which is 2 pi all over 2, which meant my period is pi. So that meant that my sine function will stop at pi and then start repeating again. I need to figure out where my midline is so I can start graphing things. Midline is the equation y equals k, and my k is a 5, which meant my midline moved up to where 5 is, and I need to make sure that I can go 3 more past that 5. So I need to rescale my y-axis. So here's my y-axis. And I know my midline is now right here at the 5. Well, if that's my midline, let's see what the h and k do. My h is 0. H is the horizontal shift. Because it's a 0, that meant there was none. So we have no horizontal shift. My k value, which is 5, k tells us how much we're moving up and down, which meant we have a vertical shift. And because k is 5, our vertical shift is going to be up by 5. So now I just need to find my 5 key points. We are looking at the sine function. And because cosine and sine have very different formulas, you need to make sure you're looking at the sine. Sine has 3 intercepts on the midline. So we have 3 x-intercepts, and I'm putting it in quotes because they're not x-intercepts anymore. They're midline intercepts. So this was the midline intercept before the vertical shift. Because there's a vertical, which is a y, we need to make sure that the y has the vertical shift in it. So I am at the coordinate point 0, and then 0 plus my k value of 5. So 0, 5 is my first. So 0, 5 is right here. Where is my second x-intercept, which is a midline intercept? My second is at the 2 pi b 0, but my y needs to have that vertical change in it. So here is the added k for the vertical change. My k is 5. So this coordinate point is at the coordinate point pi 5. So here's pi 5. This was another x-intercept. Sine has 3 midline x-intercepts. So our third one is this formula. So remember, the y value needs to have the vertical shift in it. So here is my vertical shift. My b is a 2. My k is a 5. So pi halves 5 is my third. These are all the 3 midline intercepts that I am going to have. Sine has 1 max and the max. This was the max formula. But the y value needs to have that vertical shift in it. So here is me giving it that vertical shift. And now I can plug in my values for A, B, and K. So B is 2, my A is 3, and my K is 5. So my max is pi 4ths 8. And pi 4ths 8 is right here. And now my min is my 5th and final point. I have 3/4, 2 pi b, negative a. The y value needs to have the vertical shift in it. So we need to make sure we have our formula that has the vertical shift in it as well. So my b is 2, my a is 3, and my k is 5. So my min is at the coordinate point 3 pi 4ths 2. So 3 pi 4ths is right here, and then up 2. So I saw that I went up to 8, down to 2. So I need to go back up. So this is what my sine function will look like for the first period. Everything after this is a repeat. So I see that every half has another x-intercept. So let's make sure that those all have the x-intercepts or our midline intercepts on them. So from here, I saw that I was supposed to go, so it said up to 8, down to 2. So let's go up to 8, and now I'm supposed to go down to the 2, up to the 8 again, and then down to the, I have no more room. So from here, I need to go down to the 2, and I need to go up to the 8. Now I'm supposed to go down to the 2, and back up to the 8. And here is my sine function. There are 2 problems left on the next page for independent practice. Please do these 2 on your own.